Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel, Jalal's Temple. Today, my guest is one of my longest-term friends. We have been coming from the same country. We have studied in the same undergrad, or in French, les classes préparatoires. We have been flatmates in London for many years. He is currently a senior equity derivatives trader at one of the US top-tier banks. He's coming today to give us a wealth of knowledge about this fast-paced world of financial markets. He has extensive experience in this domain, and he's going to share with us a lot of career advice and insights on this topic. Whether you are an experienced professional who is looking to up his career, or a graduate, or an intern who is just starting in this journey of finance, we're going to be getting a lot of invaluable information from our guest today. We're going to also talk about some topics which are unrelated to finance in the end. So stick with us, and we hope you're going to enjoy this interview. Major, welcome to my temple.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Very glad to have you. How are you doing?
Great. Looking forward to this. I know we've talked about this for a while, and now it's happening.
Now it's happening, finally, yeah. So we're live here from London. We're going to talk about your career, of course, how you got to the point where you are right now, what are all the steps that you had to overcome, and the experiences that you have amassed that you can share and give your teachings to the new generations. So the first question that I want to ask you, just to give people a bit of background about yourself, tell us about how did you do to end up here? What did you go through? And tell us about the process.
So I guess the journey started, as you said, I grew up in Morocco, and then I went to study abroad. Initially, I didn't really know I was going to work in finance at all. I didn't have a particular career plan. I just knew I liked mathematics, physics, and all sort of scientific topics in general. And that's what I focused on for a few years, starting in undergrad and then in master's, where I studied anything from physics to mathematics, some chemistry, some engineering. And through this journey, I, a bit by luck, met someone at a career fair who explained to me what he was doing in one of the banks and introduced me to financial markets. And that's how I landed my first internship. And that's how the whole thing started. The internship was a completely new experience. It was my first professional experience. I loved the pace. I loved the new, exciting environment. The fact that I could see people using some of the concepts potentially that we've seen at uni, but also applied to the real world, mixed with capturing the news flow. Like, you felt a bit at the center of the action, and that was something that appealed to me a lot. And yeah, obviously, it's a very well-remunerated career, which is always a plus. And yeah, that's how I kind of ended up thinking about it, hesitating with other career paths, which may be more natural from someone who studied physics, but there are plenty of people who didn't study finance, but studied more like quantitative topics that end up in this field. And yeah, so that's how I ended up there.
So it feels like this defining moment of that person that you have met kind of gave you a certain direction to follow, which is the financial direction. So before that point, what did you think you would be doing in your future?
Interesting question, actually. I was all over the place a bit. So as I said, I started studying physics and mechanics, and this was kind of my core, call it major, in the study. And so what can you do from there? Well, there's this part of physics which is maybe I really enjoyed, but it's probably a bit very theoretical and can only lead to research job, realistically. And there's the part which is more applied physics, and that's probably where I would have ended. Maybe working for one of the big aeronautics companies, or maybe one of the big tech companies in general. Like, as I said, like it's not the skill sets of quantitative skill sets tend to have decent amount of overlap. So back then I was hesitating also to become maybe more orient myself toward software engineering. So maybe increase my proficiency in coding in order to maybe transition from pure physics to some mix of physics and software engineering. There was also very interesting fields that were nascent back then, like at the interface between, let's say, biology and technology. So like, and I had the opportunity to kind of look at all these, and I was hesitating. I knew about finance. I didn't actually think that there would be necessarily a big overlap. But in the end, actually, there is a lot of overlap. And so I was actually quite amazed that a lot of the, let's say, mathematical concepts that are used in physics are actually directly applicable to derivative options theory. And that was kind of fun. I mean, obviously, in the day-to-day, you don't really use physics concepts every day. Now, I barely use them at all. But that was like an interesting entry point into the field.
And so, for example, when you talk about theoretical physics, I have the impression that given the fact that a lot of firms, whether it's buy side or sell side, do hire actually graduates and PhDs from all these theoretical fields, such as such as physics or biology or astrophysics. In some way, you would have anyway maybe ended up in finance, even though you would have done the physical path.
Potentially, yes. I mean, a lot of professionals we do hire at a little bit more senior level, as let's say an associate as opposed to analyst. So we'll come back to the different ranks, but they tend to have maybe had an experience as a research scientist. And then the path of going through a quantitative topic, then going to pursue your passion, and maybe do a few years of postgraduate, do research where you really delve deep into a specific topic, maybe have few publications, maybe contribute in some more or less meaningful way to the field in which you specialized. That's an experience that is very, very valued in financial markets in general, be it on the buy side or sell side. So in all like quantitative jobs will value this sort of experience, because what we're really looking for really, it's pretty much impossible to like learn how to be a trader at school. Like this is not a thing that makes sense. Like, so what we're looking for is capabilities, like someone who has demonstrated that he's good with numbers, and that he can think when faced with new problems. And typically someone who went through this path of studying some heavily quantitative topic, then doing research in a professional way and actually publishing meaningful papers, is someone that has proven to some extent that he can integrate into this environment. So this experience is very valued, actually. So I agree with you. I could have ended up in finance after 2, 5, or maybe even 10 years. There are examples actually of even, for example, hedge fund managers that are reasonably well known that spent 20, 25 years being at the top of their game in research or machine learning or physics, and that ended up launching a fund or joining a fund at a very senior level or being head of machine learning somewhere. So there's a lot of, I would say, connectivity between quantitative topics and the world of finance in general. And you'll always be welcome. If you've proved yourself as someone that is strong in his or her quantitative field of expertise, there will be a role for you in finance.
I think the most prominent example I can think of is Jim Simmons, the founder of Renaissance Technologies. After 15 or 20 years being one of the most sought after mathematicians, he was able to launch, well, simply the most successful hedge fund of all time with the insanely high returns. But it's really interesting, this intersection between the scientific mind and the trading world, where, as you mentioned, we have a high capability of thinking and reasoning and being faced with new problems and being able to solve them in an analytical and scientific way. So you have been, how many years have you been in your current role?
I would say a bit more than 10 years, like 10, 11 years, roughly.
10, 11 years roughly. And which rank do you hold at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm in the ranks that are common across banks. So you have analyst, you have associate. Analyst is where you usually start if you've done an undergrad or like a, let's say, non-specialized master. If you start in a very quantitative role, you might be able to start as an associate directly, although it's not very common in trading. Probably a bit more common in strats roles. Then you have vice president, executive director, and managing director. These are the ranks. At the moment, I'm executive director.
Almost at the end, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically.
And how many years do you need to spend in each? Are there
So I would say for the junior levels, it's reasonably codified. So usually you spend between 1 and 2 years as an analyst. Then you can spend 2 to 3 years as an associate. Then I would say 3 to 4, 5 years as a VP. Although starting from VP, I would say that there is no particular expectation that you would actually be able to go to the next rank. So I would say that most people can get to VP level. After that, ED level is still tends to happen after a while, but it can take 5 or 6 years sometimes. The MD rank is not an expectation at all. So you can stay 20 years as an ED, and as long as you're doing your job and producing at the appropriate required level, and you're happy with your own situation, there is not always a push from the business to promote you or to tell you that you're underperforming. So maybe the business can be happy with you as a director, and if you're happy as well, then this relationship can last for a while without it being challenged. Now, if you want to push for the MD rank, that obviously comes with an extra amount of pressure, of maybe perseverance, of learning how to navigate the environment that is a bank, which is a living environment, with all the knowing who can pull the levers for you, who can be human support, what sort of businesses do you want to push that maybe are more likely to lead to an MD position. Because as I said, managing director is a rank where there needs to be a need for that type of seniority and role for a given business. So the business needs to be successful. You need to have maybe some management responsibilities. You need to be leading some critical projects, or basically you need some clear plus for the firm to push you to MD level. So yeah, that's kind of the overall.
It does seem like there is some kind of, I would call it a VP cloud, where you have a high amount of people getting amassed in that area without having a guarantee to progress to the next level, which is ED. And probably there is also a cloud, the ED cloud, which is maybe smaller than the VP one, where some people stay there for a while with, again, no real guarantee of moving forward to the MD level. But if we look at your case specifically, what do you think is needed, or what would you need to do in order to progress to this last step from ED to MD? Assuming you would want it, actually.
That's a good question. So once you reach, I would say, ED level, especially in trading, let me maybe take a step back and just say what each rank is sort of roughly expected to do, and finish with the MD side. So when you join as an analyst, you're not really producing anything. You just expected to learn. You're expected to learn, to ask questions, to show your willingness to progress, your willingness to have good work ethics, not cut corners, just do the hard work, be it interesting, not interesting, basically do what's needed to help as much as you can people who are going to teach you the job, because that's really how you learn from them, is by being valuable to them. And they will reward you by teaching you the job, really. That's what you're getting. When you progress to associates, you start being a bit more productive. So you start maybe having a mastery of some aspects of the job, but you still need to rely on a more senior colleague for any sort of real decision. So you can maybe have ownership of some small projects that improve the infrastructure, maybe of a small book. Maybe there's a business which is actually non-existent at the moment, so it doesn't have a lot of impact. So you can maybe take it over, try to expand it. So, or you can be just like the cover, what we call the cover, meaning the person that will be the second in hand for a more senior trader covering a given activity. When you get to VP level, you're expected to actually transition from this setup where you're kind of always need the help of someone more senior for any sort of decision that is meaningfully impacts meaningfully the business, to a stage where you are viewed as responsible of something. So that's the first rank where really you can see a lot of differentiation as well in terms of maybe recognition, be it recognition in terms of pay or of opportunities that are open to you, or maybe expansion of responsibilities. So that's really the rank after which you can really start to shine, and you see wildly diverging career paths starting from there. When you get to director, you're pretty much expected to be basically have ownership of some sort of sub business. So you've proved yourself as a good producer, as a VP, that you were able to do the job in a good and solid way. And now you can move to the next step. You develop new activities. You own some sub business. The managing director level, I would say there are probably 2 or 3 types of paths to get there. So you can in trading, and that's probably only valid in trading, I would say. Probably in some sales roles, but outside of trading and some sales roles, I think this path I'm going to talk about doesn't exist, is the path of elite producer. So basically you make so much money for the bank or the place you're working at, being as a top salesperson who's covering major clients and bringing lots of revenues, or as a trader who's managing a huge book and constantly being one of the top performers of the whole floor. If you actually don't want to go up in management, you can probably push for MD without actually having more, call it, management responsibilities. So but that requires usually a pretty steep level of production, which very few people can actually achieve. The more usual path is, I would say, that of you're the head of a given business. So you're not only a book owner, but you're kind of the number 2 of a desk, or the number 1, most likely, of a whole desk, meaning a desk that can contain several sub-activities. This is an MD role, and something that's obviously critical. You need that desk to be at least moderately successful. Like, if you are in a desk that is not successful, you can be the head, it doesn't matter. Like, the corporation will not invest in you to make you an MD. So when you're heading a successful business, that's viewed as an MD role that makes sense to get there. So going back to your question, if I wanted to push for MD role, what I would need to do is basically try to expand my responsibilities, maybe gather more activities, have more, I would say, other branches reporting to me, and prove basically to the management that I'm the best person to step up into that role, and cover more and more activities until it's kind of clear that you have an MD role. So it's almost like you need to actually be perceived like an MD in terms of actual delivery and responsibility before being named an MD officially. And that's why I said that most or a lot of EDs either don't necessarily want to, or don't have the ability to, or don't have the correct setup to become an MD, because it requires it's the level going from ED to MD is usually the level when your job changes massively. So from analyst to ED, you're just becoming more and more and more proficient at trading. Becoming an MD in a bank is usually the step where you actually have to start caring about a lot more things: how to manage a team, how to expand an overall activity, how to push for budgets, how to deal with all different type of internal constraints and stakeholders and risk limits that you impose on the desk. And so it just becomes a whole different level and breadth of things you have to manage to get there. It can take time.
It seems there is even we can talk about a new skill set that you need to acquire in order to be even qualifiable for that role. As you said, ED, from analyst to ED, you skill up on a certain set of technicalities in trading. But there is another, we can call it a vertical, completely orthogonal skill set that you need for the MD level that you have not been necessarily developing or seen or being exposed to in your previous years, and now all of a sudden you need to actually develop to be able to move to that level.
So usually, like, once you reach the MD role, you kind of, although these days partnerships don't really exist per se, meaning real partnerships where you actually own part of the company, but most places still maintain this sort of MD level kind of club vibe. So when you're an MD, you have access to more things You have access to more information, maybe about the overall health of the business, about how other desks are doing, like direct data. While as an ED level, maybe you kind of have a good visibility of what's happening within your team and your desk and so on, but you don't have direct access to anything outside of your realm. So at the MD level, you become probably viewed more as someone who is gonna steer the business as a whole in one direction or other. You can probably opine on other areas. You have basically forums to do that. So you can have meetings which are like MD meetings of the floor. And because obviously the number is rather compact, these meetings actually make sense. Like if you have a meeting with 7, 10, or maybe even 15 people, the meeting still makes sense. You can still voice maybe ideas, bounce things off each other, and get to a stage where you can direct the business somewhere. If you are 100 people, that obviously doesn't serve any purpose. So it's a small enough club that you tend to get that feel of actually being in a different kind of level.
And if we go back to your specific case, so you've been in ED now 11 years at the firm in which you are working, equity derivatives trading. If we take a copy of yourself, so the same person as you, same IQ, same cognitive abilities, and we have two persons just like you, what would make you a better trader than the other copy? What are the elements that you have or that you need to have in order to outperform that other person who has, let's say, the same hardware as you, both in terms of mind and in terms of tools that you are using?
So I would say the first and most important thing actually by far is to always be open to learning. Like don't get too comfortable. And that can happen in cycles. So you can start, obviously, when you start your career, you're learning a lot. Like the first 2-3 years, you're just learning so much that you don't actually have time to really breathe or think about chilling or like relaxing. So you're constantly learning as a default because the business is pushing things onto you to learn. So even if you're passive, you're forced to learn. The trap that often people can fall into is once they acquire a reasonable mastery of a given amount of tasks that fill their day and that the business needs, then the business kind of is getting something out of them. And so it's not going to push to make you learn more. So there's often cases where a given person is going to be perfectly adapted to a given set of tasks that were assigned to that person by their manager or by the needs of the business. And they're doing a good job. But that doesn't mean that the business is going to push them to learn something else or to go to the next step or to diversify their knowledge or anything. Like, so a bank is not university. So the bank is not trying to teach you anything, like call it as a mission. This is not its mission. So it teaches you things because you having this knowledge is useful to impact revenues and drive the business. Once you start having a certain impact, then this external pressure of learning stops. Mm-hmm. So it's on you to actually keep learning all the time. Try to maybe, if you get bored, you try to change activity. If you want to learn more things, even that they're not really linked to what you're doing, feel free to do it. You have the chance to be in like a trading floor, take it as an opportunity to talk to people, to learn about different things. People can be helpful if you catch them in downtime. Like everyone has downtime. Like this image of like constantly under stress people is not really true. Like you have stressful periods, but you also have more relaxed period where you can actually go and connect with people and discuss various things and learn from them. So and I think that's the most fundamental skill that differentiates people. Is people just end up stagnating for years and wondering why they don't progress, why they don't get promoted, why they're not really going anywhere. And that's just because it's not for the business to try to get you in that direction. Like if you have a very good manager that is very aware of ambitions of different people, he can probably try to manage that a bit and help you. But it's still for you to express the desire to learn about different topic, to maybe you're aiming for a given promotion, maybe you want to change team, so again, like it's for you to manage your career. And I would say this is the most not, I wouldn't say underrated, because people are aware of it, like in some sort of theoretical way, but people don't really implement it. So everyone is aware of what I'm saying, but very few people actually take it as a core driving thing. So I would say that's the most important. Then you have secondary ones, well, like which tend to become more and more important as you become more and more senior, which is like building relationships. So having supports, being known by different teams, by different people, knowing who to contact for what, and expanding your circle of what I would call your circle of trust. So basically bunch of people in various areas or roles which are reasonably impactful, and that because they know you and they know the quality of your work, they're happy to react quick to some of your maybe requests or need for help or intervene in some capacity. It can be either for some internal problem, can be for market related discussion, can be for hiring, can be for any sort of problematic. But that circle of trust is very important, and it tends to become more and more important as you become more and more senior. Maintain if you happen to have a genuine relationship with someone, just it doesn't, especially if it's not forced at all, it doesn't cost anything to maintain. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's being fake to try to maintain relationships, because you also know that they might benefit you professionally for the future.
Yeah.
It's just part of the environment. Like, it makes sense to maintain professional relationships the same way you maintain personal relationships.
Yeah.
And they can pay back 10 years down the line, 5 years. You never know.
So then it's very clear, fundamental factor would be to actually materialize the desire for learning and not just keep it theoretical. And the second one, building the relationships and building a sort of circle of trust. And so I guess the question that I'm really asking and I want to steer to is, I don't know if I can verbalize it in the expression training flair. So we have spoke about these two main factors, but now if we focus mainly about generating the P&L for the desk, and what would make you a better P&L generator than another person who has exactly the same capabilities that you have?
So if I guess this is, you can see it as a subsection of learning. So maybe like, I mean, obviously, potentially some people have more aptitudes in certain given very specific niche abilities, like maybe resistance to stress, maybe ability to act in a chaotic environment that can come into play. Like, for example, I'm a very low stress person in general.
And I mean, you don't feel stress, or you manage it very well?
I don't feel it that much. And even when it's there, I tend to kind of manage it well.
So now there is an earthquake.
I mean, obviously I'm talking about trading related stress. I could see that. So that's kind of, I'm not sure if it's innate or acquired, but that's something that will differentiate you. Now, going back to, because your example was two clones of me.
Yeah.
This is not relevant. So it's more like, how do you learn actually to trade? And I would say, I think the best way to learn how to trade is to find someone that is a good trader and learn from him as much as you can. Like, you just figure out how to help that person so that they see it as worth their time to teach you the ropes. Especially because when you reach a certain level, the self-learning is actually kind of works, because trading is not a hard science. There's no like proper recipe. So once you reach a certain level, you can start to try different things and learn by doing, and branch out into different ways of making money and learning a few tricks and developing yours and so on. But this initial period of like going from someone who has no clue about anything to someone who is actually kind of reasonably proficient is just so much quicker when you're learning from someone that is already good. So the quickest path to get there is not to actually reinvent the whole trading and derivatives theory, is to learn from someone. And the best path to learn from someone is not to ask, is to add value. Always think of that. Like, even at the most junior level, if you manage to offload a bunch of things from a senior person who you think is good or perceived as good, or you think can teach you things, don't hesitate. It doesn't matter if it's like a task that is a bit boring or anything. It can also be you're just likable as a person. That matters, and it can look a bit maybe unexpected in such a, call it mathematically driven and kind of objective P&L related world. But reality is you're gonna spend between 9 and 12 hours per day with these people. If they can't really stand you, they're not likely to teach you anything. They're just gonna teach you the minimum required so that you can be useful in your given task. Yeah. So really, like, it's maybe people would expect some sort of tricks, or like, well, I'm gonna look at technical analysis, or I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna focus on this or that. But all of that, usually people kind of know that they need to do that, or maybe just learn here and there. The most overlooked things are actually kind of soft skills and kind of just being aware, reading the room, knowing when to bother someone to teach you something, being likable, and being very keen to take on responsibility and try new things. And finally, there is actually something which is also in this soft skill kind of area, which is extremely important. Is called what I would call expectation management. So the best thing that a junior can do is offload some weight from your mind, and to do that, you need to, as a senior person, what you need is someone that you can trust. So when the junior person tells you, I don't know about this thing, I need to learn, you teach them, that's great. But once they tell you, I got it, you know they really got it. The worst thing is they tell you, I got it, but they actually didn't. And you realize later, either after a mistake or actually because you know they probably didn't, the weight is still on your mind. So to become a good trader really is the best way is to find a good trader and learn from him or her. And then once you reach a reasonable level of proficiency, then keep curious, always learning, always trying to find new things to look at. When you get bored is when it's time to change role, change field, learn about new things.
So if I translate it properly, you need to be an intellectually curious person who is really willing to provide value to his manager, and in return, the manager will be very keen to giving his teachings on the trading side to this new junior who can then scale up and skill up his skills to become a good trader, while also continuing to learn when you reach that moment where you think that you have started to stagnate or you started to get bored. In a nutshell. And so if we talk, I mean, we've been speaking about soft skills and hard skills, and I'm very sure these are very explanatory factors of success in this field. Now, if we talk about luck, what do you think is the place of luck in this field? Does it have a big importance? Is it completely irrelevant? Is it totally irrelevant? What is your stance on that?
I think luck has a place, like in everything in life. But the way I like to think about it is people will be exposed to a certain amount of luck in their life. And even the most unlucky person will be lucky at some point. What differentiates people is not actually the amount of luck they get, is how ready they are when the luck shows up. And I think this is often overlooked. So people just look at someone who is very successful and they, let's say like a typical luck that can happen. You're stuck in some team where you think there is no more progression. Maybe there are lots of senior people above you. You kind of think you learned what you have to learn, and you feel like you're delivering a bit too much compared to the recognition, and there is no. This is a very typical situation that people can find themselves in. And yes, maybe that will last for a year or 2 or 3, where yeah, there is no luck. It is what it is. While maybe another colleague will just have 2 resignations above him. And he will just have a very open field in which to progress within the organization, or maybe he will be hired, he will get an offer somewhere else or something. So in appearance, these 2 people, one is unlucky, one is lucky. But in reality, this is not really the case. Like while the luck might have been the speed at which this opportunity has come, the reality is in the team of the lucky person, there are probably like 4 candidates that could have theoretically got that job. next step job. Or maybe if he got hired externally, there will be even more. Like when an external role shows up, they can interview 20 people, 30 people. And really, the person who got selected, of course, the luck is the opportunity existing, but the major factor is him or her being the best out of 30 candidates. And somehow, if you're good, it keeps looking like you're lucky. Because every time there is a new random thing that happens, and there will be plenty of random things that will happen, the difficult thing is you can't predict them. So you have to keep forcing yourself to be good and productive, and just trust that there will be some luck that will be at some point. And what you don't want is, and that I've seen that happen, is people missing this opportunity and failing to capitalize on it. And even for me, like, it happens a few times where you feel like, okay, there's this opportunity just appeared and I feel underprepared because I didn't behave as if I was going to have it for the past 6 months or 9 months, which is the time that is required to actually properly prepare for maybe a random opportunity and be sure that you're at the best of your game, and maybe learn about all the subjects that you need to, and so on. So to answer your question, yes, luck is a factor, but I think the main factor by far is being the best person when the luck shows up, and the luck will show up. It's just that sometimes you don't even know the luck has showed up because you were not considered for that role. There is a new role that people think of who would be the best person maybe to talk to. They have 3-4 people in mind. They try to see with them if they would be interested. Then maybe 2 of them are interested out of 4. They talk to these 2 people. They make a decision. One of these 2 people gets the job. Then it gets announced in an email or in some capacity or not even. And then you have a bunch of people who think that they were not lucky, but they were just not called at all. So if they were like actually to the same standard as the one who were called,
Yeah.
they would have gotten that luck, you can call it. So it's a bit of a difficult question. Some people at the extremes get extremely lucky or extremely unlucky, but you before thinking that you're one of these 2 outliers, make sure that you are not just having sample bias and just missing.
Yeah, it does seem indeed that it's a problem on the receiving end, meaning that it's either somebody who cannot or is not able to recognize that luck when it arises, or he is unable to convert it in his favor. And I always have this this analogy with, as you know, there are a lot of stars or galaxies which are in space, and if you have the proper telescope, you're going to be able to see them. But if you don't see them, it's just that you don't have the right telescope to see it. So it's really an issue which is on the receiving side to both recognize and convert, and as you said, be prepared for the opportunity to make it count.
And to piggyback on the previous question, there is an element as well which is going to give you a lot of opportunities and make you look like you're lucky, which is the network you build. After 2 years, maybe you don't have that much network, but if after 10 or 15 years, you had a lot of connections, a lot of people that were your friends, that moved to different banks, that you know, that respect you, that worked with you, you're going to get exposed to a lot of different opportunities, just passively. While someone who didn't build a network will just not be lucky, as you say.